Aloha and welcome to A Word with Ward. I'm Representative Gene Ward, and today we're going to have a word on a subject that many of you are wondering about, don't know too much about, or have a love-hate relationship about it. We're going to talk about drones, and to tell you all you want to know about drones is Larry Osborn of DreamHammer. Larry, welcome to the program, A Word with Ward.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And before we get into this topic, which, as I said, some people may love or hate, and I usually don't categorize the audience, but there's some out there that feel very suspicious about drones, those who love the benefits about drones, and then there's those who don't know anything about drones. But before we get into that subject, let's talk about who's Larry Osborn from DreamHammer. What, DreamHammer? I mean, I can't imagine a vision of a dream and a hammer.
Well, let me tell you what we do at DreamHammer.
Yeah, tell me who
we have designed commercial software to control drones or unmanned systems. So we have more or less a program, a software program that's commercially available that will control any number of unmanned systems of different types, proprietary or standards-based, in a single user interface, as well as to be able to control the sensors on board or bring in other software related to the mission, like maybe weather data or other data from radars or FAA feeds, for example, all into a single user interface.
So this assumes drones are controlled by laptops rather than...
Drones are typically controlled by some computer. If you think of it, a drone has three components. It'll have the platform itself, the drone, with its sensors on it, whatever that might be, the purpose for it. And it'll have communications link, a data link or a radio, two-way radio, so you can send commands back and forth. And then there will be a human interface, and typically that's on a computer. It can be a single-purpose device just to control that drone, or it could be on a PC or another computer that could have multifunctions, one of them being to control the drone across the network.
So drones are always controlled by people?
Yeah, you know, we've called them unmanned systems, but they're far from being unmanned, because there's always a human in the loop somewhere that typically is actually in real time controlling the behavior of that vehicle and what it does in real time. Or the drone is somewhat autonomous and is given commands to perform a certain task, and then you know, is available for other tasks as done by the human in the loop.
Okay, let's back up a little bit and get to the definitional stage of what a drone or unmanned or unwoman or unperson vehicle is. How many different kinds are they, and what do they look like?
Oh gosh, I think that they can range in any domain, and by domain I'll mean if you think of satellites, and we all know what satellites are because they're used for communications, or they're used by the military for reconnaissance, and especially in Hawaii we're very dependent on to get NBC News, let's say, in real time. So these satellites are all unmanned systems, if you will, because they're controlled remotely. There's no human aboard that satellite executing commands or flying it as it orbits the Earth. So they're an unmanned system. Other unmanned systems include air vehicles. It might be anything from Northrop Grumman's Global Hawk, a great big airplane-sized vehicle that can fly as high as 60,000 feet and above, or something that would resemble more of a model airplane. That could be very small, or even miniaturized to something very, very small, and fly close to the ground, and everything in between.
So it has to be in the air?
No.
Okay, what's the other kind of drone?
Another kind might be a surface drone in the maritime environment that would just be on the surface of the water or underwater. And typically those on the surface and underwater may be used for military applications, or they may be used to collect scientific data about what's on the surface, weather, let's say, or under the water they could be collecting data about the topology of the bottom, or you know, what kind of marine life is there, etc.
I was fortunate to hear you speak at Rotary a while back, and you said that the unmanned submarines were the ones that in the Gulf oil spill were instrumental in patching.
Yeah, if you remember, you know, we might have seen them on TV, because they have these oil well heads way down on the bottom of the ocean, very, very deep, you know, significantly deep depths, where they're not typically going to send divers there. But they'll send a remote submarine down, if you will. Doesn't look much like a submarine, it looks like a box. But it can go down to those wellheads and actually do maintenance on them. You know, tighten bolts, install components, take components apart, etc. All by remote control.
So drones in the skies, under the water, where else are they?
In space.
In space. in the satellites and the other. What
And-
about those
and
things?
on the ground, you know, famously, the Army has been using robots, let's say in Iraq and Afghanistan, to find and disable these IEDs, these improvised explosive devices. And it's much safer to have a drone approach it and investigate before you send a human there.
What about Google's driverless car, the
Yeah.
Prius? Is that a drone?
And that's going on too, and that in essence will be a drone, because if it's driverless, I guess it meets the definition that the human will not be interacting directly with the controls, but in an automated way, it can take you to work maybe and bring you home, even though you'll still be in your car, but you can read the paper or watch this program while you're riding.
You know, everybody drives a car. We have as many cars as we have people in Hawaii. And do not drones actually end up welding and making a good part of the car already by its mechanical arms that come? I've seen Toyota in Detroit kind of simulating that basically the car is made by the machines, which in another way is saying a drone, right?
And in a way that's a drone too, because these are automatic welding machines on the assembly line, and they're pre-programmed to perform a certain function, and they do it very precisely, and much less expensive than having workers on the floor with welding torches.
Okay, so we're in the kind of the positive zone of the drones in the sense that what are some of the uses
Sure.
that have been productive and beneficial?
Well, I'll start off by saying that to date, most of the uses have been military uses.
Yeah, that's what's in a
drones.
lot of the minds of those people around there that,
Exactly,
oh.
and that's been where it's been, because it's taken pilots away from that risk area that they might be exposed to, and instead a drone has gone to do those functions. So that's where it's kind of been. But what's happening now is people are beginning to see the commercial applications, which are significant, and we're talking about an $80 to $100 billion industry in the United States alone with just air vehicles in the next 10
It's
years.
huge.
It's huge. And
Example of air vehicles.
Yeah, example of an air vehicle. Well, I'll give you an example. As long ago as 2 years ago, I was at a show where I saw a little Yamaha helicopter to do crop spraying. And if you think about it, crop spraying has been a very hazardous occupation for pilots to perform that function. And now, at least in Japan, you can have an unmanned air vehicle perform that function. And it's part of a larger segment of the industry that we'll call precision agriculture. And the really good thing about precision agriculture is that by using drones and surveying fields with special sensors like hyperspectral cameras, a farmer can determine the health of the crop, and he can only apply pesticide as he needs it, where he needs it very precisely, or only apply insecticide, or only apply fertilizer where he needs it, and not just a blanket application across the whole field, and manage irrigation so that he can only water those portions that need water and not overwater and waste. So it becomes a very desirable thing in terms of the environmental impact of farming with precision agriculture. And that can be done very inexpensively with small drones that do the survey. And as the industry matures, then these same unmanned systems will be used probably to apply the pesticides and apply fertilizer, et cetera,
So
in
good
a
for
very
farmers.
precise manner.
Excellent use for farmers.
Yes.
How about
and they expect this is to be probably the very first big emerging commercial application. And I have to say that they've been doing this in other countries for several years. And in particular, Japan has adopted this. We are yet still waiting for FAA approval to be able to have any commercial activity in the air.
Zero.
And zero right now.
I think a lot of people have the impression that, hey, drones can come and go as they please, and you're saying not one of them can come
not
and go.
so.
In all the U.S. or just Hawaii, or all over the U.S.?
Well, there is a small area in Alaska where they're beginning to open it up to commercial use. because they've demonstrated, one, that they have a very small population, uninhabited areas where they can safely fly the drones, not a lot of conflict with other commercial air carriers or whatever, and they're doing some things in the oil and gas industry, and like surveilling pipelines and wellheads. And they're also doing some things in terms of monitoring fisheries and wildlife.
So they have permission to do that, but nobody
They
in Hawaii
have
has
some little permissions to do that. But what we're waiting for is FAA approval to mix the drones with the commercial aircraft in the same airspace. And so you can use these drones for commercial purposes.
Case in point, back to the Rotary presentation you made. The albizia trees that were falling all over the roads and the houses on our good friends on the Big Island.
Yes.
I saw what looked like a Hollywood shot of the beginning or the end of the movie where they just travel around.
Wonderfully done.
Smooth. And, and you said that was a drone taking photos.
It was a drone taking
hurricane.
photos just after the hurricane went through. A great example for two purposes. One is that drones are very cost effective and very good at surveying areas, say for disaster response. After a tsunami or after a hurricane, or you can run a drone through and find out, where the damage is, where the flooding is, where there are people who need help, and be able to direct some of the first responders to that disaster using these drones, and very cost effective. The other thing about that movie is that it was so well done, and the photography was so good.
Looked like Hollywood to me.
It was a Hollywood production. That quality of production. The film industry wants to use drones, because you can get a lot of these shots without the expense of having a manned helicopter do it. And you can do that very well, and you can do it from an altitude of 5 feet or 50 feet or 100 feet, much more flexible than a manned helicopter would be in order to get those kinds of shots. So the film industry is very interested in having airborne drones be integrated with our national airspace.
What about search and rescue?
Yes.
We have a lot of that in Hawaii. A lot of drownings, a lot of people are stranded, they're lost.
Exactly. There is a small company in Texas that has demonstrated the utility of small UAVs to find people in the woods. Because, one example is that you can use an IR sensor.
Oh, what?
Infrared sensor.
Oh, okay.
And be able to find things that are warmer than the background. So you can find animals, people, whatever, in the woods, looking through a canopy of trees or whatever, and it's a great tool for finding things, finding humans that are lost in the woods. Or it's a great tool for use against forest fires.
So you're saying the drone would hover over the woods and then sense...
Would search an area. Search an area.
How high above the ground would it be?
Oh, I guess it depends on the sensor and the type drone and how much area they're trying to cover. But it could be at a couple hundred feet doing a search pattern.
You can do that over the ocean also then?
You could do that over the ocean as well, and the same concept could work. And cover large areas, much less expensively than you can with manned helicopters or big fixed-wing airplanes like C-130s that the Coast Guard operates.
If we ever find the Malaysian, was it number 317?
Yes.
If we ever find that plane, it'll probably be a drone, an underwater drone somewhere
very
in the
likely.
South China Sea.
Very likely.
If we ever find it.
If we ever find it, it may be. Or it may be found by some other sensor, and then some drone will go down and confirm that that's what was found.
Larry, at the beginning of the program, I said that there are 3 different audiences out there. One that doesn't probably know much or anything about drones. Those who love it and see the benefits, which we've spent maybe the last segment of the program on. But then there are those who say, wait just a minute, Mr. Osborn. Drones have, in my mind, an image of where the privacy issue, the safety issue. Could you address a couple of those things?
Sure.
And for those who are going to be concerned about
I think the public. First of all, let's talk about its technology. It's a convergence of a bunch of new technologies that have enabled this kind of capability to be fielded. And like all technologies, it can be used for good, or it can be used for something that may be nefarious or malicious, you know. And so, you know, I don't know that we want to assign some quality to the technology. It's because it's the way humans use it.
Well, the internet was military before it became personal and private. Now we can't live without it, you know?
Yes, yes, exactly. And so, you know, there's that aspect to it. But there are legitimate concerns about the use of drones. I think the concerns, you know, basically revolve around privacy and around public safety. And so, you know, let me address public safety first.
Okay.
And for the purposes of public safety, the Federal Aviation Administration has to develop some technologies and some procedures and processes to make sure that these aircraft, these drone aircraft, can be operated safely within the national airspace system. In other words, they're not going to collide with some commercial aircraft and cause a catastrophe, or they're not going to fall out of the sky and hit something or somebody and cause damage or injury or death to people. So that work is ongoing. And as we learn more and as the policies and procedures are developed, then the airspace will be opened up for commercial purposes.
Isn't that what DreamHammer does, in effect? Show where a drone would be vis-a-vis the other
Sure,
vehicles?
it does. It provides an operating environment where you have a lot of that situational awareness. You can see where the drone is versus other things in space that are like from radar.
Your company's software is, in effect, like a control tower?
It's a control system for unmanned systems. And it could be used by a control tower who directs airplanes and other things around the sky, or it could be used by an individual operator of one of these drones, or somebody that is managing a constellation of unmanned systems.
So we are at the point in history of what otherwise has been a military function now to be commercial, and we're trying to integrate
becoming commercialized.
together.
Exactly. Well, what we're trying to do is make sure that they can be operated safely in our national airspace. Okay, and then we come to the issue of privacy. You know, how do you make sure that these devices aren't used to peep in my window or spy on my neighbor or you know, a nefarious purpose like that? Now, we already have many laws on the books to, you know, address those kinds of things, including, you know, nuisance kinds of stuff.
Peeping Toms. And
yes, you know, but there is a set of guidelines that's developed by the what's called the Aerospace States Association, which is a nonprofit that represents governors of states that have an interest in the aerospace industry. And they developed a set of guidelines, things like you could pass legislation, and the state legislature would say drones won't be used to surveil specific individuals without a warrant. Okay. We will not allow weapons carriage on commercial vehicles. You know, nobody's going to take these things out and hunt with them. You know, we will not repurpose data without a warrant. In other words, we won't go collect a lot of data and then sift through it looking for wrongdoing. You know, without a warrant, unless we're looking for something very specific. So there's a set of several very common sense guidelines that we could adopt in the state legislature to ensure that individual privacy rights are protected. And these are guidelines, by the way, that have been endorsed not only by the international law enforcement agencies, but also by the ACLU.
Sorry, I was thinking that I was wondering if the NSA has drones in terms of all the data that it's got computers and servers.
I don't have insight into what kind of drones they operate.
That's for those who are paranoid out there who are saying, "Yeah, you tell me another one on this one, Larry."
Yeah, you know what they say. There's nothing wrong with being paranoid. Just because people are coming after you doesn't mean that you're paranoid, right?
There you go. There, you said about the safety issue, which brings us really back close to home, and what otherwise Hawaii and Alaska have is one of the 6 sites.
Exactly.
You want to talk about
sure,
that?
I'd like to talk about that. Alaska was selected as one of 6 FAA test sites, and by the FAA. So they are to be a test and evaluation site to develop the technologies and process that I discussed so that we can safely integrate unmanned systems into the national airspace and then reap the benefits of their commercial use. And so Alaska was selected as one of these 6 test sites. The others are in Nevada, Texas, New Jersey, New York, and North Dakota.
And we're the small brother of the
And
Alaskan
we
one,
are
or-
a teammate with Alaska, as is the state of Oregon. And so these are public entities, so it is the state of Hawaii that is a teammate with some agencies in Alaska. And now we are probably close, I would say within 6 to 8 months, of having our first flight in Hawaii under the auspices of what is known as the Pan-Pacific Unmanned Air System Test Range Complex.
Pray tell, what will that test be, or what it might be?
Well,
or what
it,
look
it,
like?
it
Will
can be almost
police,
anything.
DLNR, or
We're
farmers?
we're not sure what that test will be, but the objective of all these tests and having this environment is to establish these, test out these new technologies that will keep us safe. The new processes. For example, there has to be some certification for somebody that's going to operate drones. You have to demonstrate some
like
competence.
a drone driver's
sort of like a
license?
drone driver's license. So you know that you're aware that you need to stay away from airports, that you only operate in certain places, that you are competent and have a good understanding of all the rules
Whose
and regulations.
Kuleana would that be under? State, city, and county?
Would be under the FAA,
Oh,
the Federal
the
Aviation
federal.
Administration.
Okay.
So just like they issue licenses to pilots, that's a
okay.
federal responsibility to do that. So there will be some license for drone operators, and there will also be a certification of the vehicles, because we need to make sure that they can navigate well enough so that we know where they are if they're out of our line of sight, and that they're able to have certain behaviors, I would say, autonomous behaviors. So if you lose communications with them, they act in a predictable way that everybody will know what they're going to do, and it's safe for everybody. Like, if they lose their communications, they're going to return home, and we'll know that that's what they're going to do.
But
so, these certifications and processes are an ongoing thing. So once this range is established as a place where we test these things, this goes on and on beyond just when we've developed policies and procedures, because these test sites will serve as sort of certification centers for that technology, so that if you decide you're going to retire someday from the state legislature and have
That's a different kind of drone.
Ward's drones, then you develop the vehicle, and you'll need to demonstrate somewhere that it is can be certified to operate.
But isn't it true? I can go on Amazon or eBay and buy for $300-400 a.
You can, and let me explain that. Everybody remembers radio control airplanes. Of course, they're still out there, and there's lots of hobbyists that do that. And they have developed sort of self-governing rules on their own, so that they can operate safely. They have a set of guidelines, and they're self-governed, where they don't fly near airports. They're in certain places. They're always within line of sight of the vehicle they're flying, and they have certain operating procedures that they adhere to. So here's the interesting part. I can be an RC hobbyist and fly that way for my own enjoyment. I could put a camera on that RC airplane and take video.
RC radio control.
Radio control, I'm sorry. I could operate that little model airplane and take video. And that's all just fine. As soon as I want to sell that video to somebody, let's say I took some really cool pictures of surfers, because I could get out there just above them over the water and take really neat pictures of them. I can share that on YouTube. I can have it for my own enjoyment. But if I try and sell that, I'm now a commercial operator, and now I run afoul of the FAA.
So if you're a paparazzi and you want to do that for story, you can't do that because you're not allowed to sell it. If
That's
you're a news
exactly right.
person.
I'm not allowed to sell it. That's a commercial activity. If I do it for my own enjoyment and I post it on YouTube for other people to enjoy, that's fine. But as soon as I try and sell it, then I've run
But you'd have
afoul.
to keep with privacy laws, peeping Tom.
Oh, yes.
Other.
Well, yes, you would. Yes, you would.
Okay, so it's kind of no man's land, but in a way it's sort of there, but we haven't kind of put it all together.
Exactly. It's a little bit like the Wild West right now. And the FAA is working so that everything is sort of under control and safe for everybody, and everybody's privacy is respected. And then we can open up this tremendous commercial market.
Was there ever any talk about having drones registered the way firearms are registered, or something like that?
There has been some talk like that. I think that for commercial drones, that they will have to demonstrate that the platform is airworthy and certified to operate in the national airspace.
How many drone manufacturers are there? How many people
gosh.
are there? Is there a lot of them?
I have to tell you, there are many, many, many.
Really?
Yes. If I attend an event called AUVSI every year, which is our national industry association. It's actually an international association for unmanned systems. And I would guess there are 100 drone manufacturers at that event, because everybody's got a small drone. Every university is building small drones. And we don't know, Gene, what all of the commercial applications will be. I could put together a list of 30 or 40 applications, and then if I thought about it a little bit, I could add 10 more. And we just don't know where this is going to take off.
I don't usually end my program, which we're going to wrap up shortly, with predictions, but when would you say that people out there may be in an airplane that has an automatic pilot? Because we know that the train that's going to go to Kapolei is going to have totally no human pilot. Or when UPS is going to be saying, okay, send this plane over here to deliver that package, or FedEx.
Yeah.
How soon is that coming?
I think, oh gosh, how soon? I think in the next 5 years, we'll see unmanned freight carriers like either FedEx or UPS. Won't be in this country because of our regulatory environment, which is the sad part, really, and our bureaucracy. But it'll happen in places like Africa, maybe, or Asia. Some places where there is a
Were that regulated that we're going to let third world countries beat us on this particular technology?
Yes, we are.
That's not
and we're already several years behind on the agriculture side. Japan's been doing this for some time, and they have commercial products out there.
Are these government impediments or politicians? Who's keeping?
Well, I think it's some of it's cultural. Think about the FAA. The FAA is responsible for safety in our airspace, and nobody at the FAA gets paid to say yes. So there is a natural tension there for them to resist this a little bit. And at the same time, there's Congress kind of pushing on the FAA to get this done, because they're getting pressure from industry to get this done so we can launch this new market.
Larry, we've almost said everything that we wanted to know about drones in the short period of time that we've got. We've run out of time. Larry, I'd love to do this again, because this is a subject that's not going away. All the things that you ever wanted to know from Larry Osborn, DreamHammer, and Representative Gene Ward from A Word with Ward, saying thank you for viewing, and aloha.